So I finished reading and reviewing Dustin Diamond, known as Screech from Saved by the Bell, his memoir about his time on the show and after. And I have a question. He trashes all trashed. He's no longer alive. All of his cast members except Lark, especially Mario Lopez. And here's my question: when talking about Mario Lopez's body, he refers to Mario Lopez's chest as juicy pecs. When someone uses those words and writes about it that way, is it possible he might have had a bit of a crush on his co-star? Just wondering. I just found that very interesting. This is my review of Dustin Diamond's memoir, Behind the Bell. This book and the person is very controversial. Well, first, the title should have been After the Bell Rang. That would have been a much better title. So, Dustin Diamond, rest in peace, had a very troubled life after the show that made his name ended. And even this memoir had a lot of controversy because it was panned, and he later on denounced it and said that he worked with a bad ghostwriter who didn't really rework it with him, and he just dictated like one draft and it was published and that's it. So, although I have to say, I'm not sure if I believe that. I think he just wanted a quick buck and just didn't care to work more on it like he tried to make it out to be. So, this is my review of the book. And I'll first say is, I know he later on made a lot of mistakes in life that showed he didn't have a good personality, and he had a lot of legal drama. And even when he passed away, his home was found out he had a hoarding problem and he struggled with drinking. I feel bad for him. I think playing a character like Screech for so long damaged his mental health, because Screech to me is a classic case of Flanderization. The thing is, all the main cast except Screech very much were Mary Sue's, but Mary Sue's cannot have any flaws. So the main conflict of each episode can't be the fault of the Mary Sue character. This means that the antagonists have to keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse to keep creating new storylines so that Mary Sue's have something to win over. And I think the character of Screech became more dorky just because he needed to be the punching bag for the rest of the cast, and something Dustin acknowledged. So it starts off with him saying that he never really got along with the cast because he wasn't very Hollywood. It's funny because he was born and his early childhood was in San Jose, and he says, oh yeah, San Jose is like Midwestern LA. Like, nobody associates San Jose with Los Angeles. San Jose is in Northern California. Los Angeles is in Southern California. San Jose is San Francisco Bay Area. So, okay, I just found that so weird. He does the classic line of, oh, I always wanted to act. It was my dream starting from a young age. My parents didn't force me into it. And yet his parents gave up their jobs and moved to Los Angeles the moment he started booking commercials. He even said that he was anxious to do auditions and he didn't want to do them, but he's like, oh, this was my dream. And he made up this whole reason why he loved acting at a young age. But he also, in the same paragraph, said his parents rewarded him by buying him toys if he booked something, buying it with his money also. So, stage parents. He was the youngest of the cast, and also he said that the production didn't know his real age, and I don't know why, other than I think his parents lied about his age to get him on. So that's very strange. The cast did have a hand in writing the show and in character direction, but for some reason his ideas weren't as valued. I think he was just very difficult to get along with. He didn't talk about making friends with the staff, but having bad encounters with them later, so I think they didn't have good memories of him. And also I think he got it from his dad, because his dad, along with the other parents of the cast, would hang out behind the scenes, and he said his dad frequently got into fights with everybody, so his dad was an outright stage dad douchebag. Every other cast member gets an entire chapter devoted to talking about them, and they're trashed. So basically, there's an entire chapter devoted to trashing every single person except Lark. And it just comes off it's so petty and so terrible. And even if everything he has to say about them is true, it makes him out to be just as bad as the people he's criticizing. So when it comes to Mark Paul Gosselaar, it just rings with jealousy. He says Mark Paul was basically Zach in real life and everyone worshipped him, and he even calls Mark the golden child. which the way it's written is just so condescending. Golden Child is always replaced with his actual name most of the time. There's an entire chapter on how Tiffany was the B word and that she was so different from Kelly. And, like, I get when it comes to these kinds of books, there'll always be some kind of complaining involved, but the degree he does it just is a point where it's like he has no self-reflection and just seems to just be very still bitter about having been on the show in the first place that made his name. The chapter trashing Mario Lopez was strange because the way he writes about Mario's body, it made me confused if it was out of jealousy or genuine lust for Mario. Because, I mean, writing Mario as having juicy pecs, that's strange. He also knew Mario Lopez had some kind of body dysmorphia, and he used that to bully Mario. Okay, so, I mean, again, even if everything he's saying about Mario is true, womanizer, just the way he writes about it just shows he does not care about learning any lessons or diving anything deeper. And the words he used are so childish, like calling Mario a poonhound. It just makes me think Dustin wanted to be that poonhound. And it also makes me wonder why Dustin didn't want to try working out and changing his appearance. If he did so, would he have been written off the show, or would have the production and writing staff then changed his character to be more likable? I mean, he did say that the cast had some influence, so not really sure what would have happened there. It's funny, though, how he accuses the cast of fame getting to their head, but the same thing happened with him very obviously. And just the way he comments on their bodies is just to a horrifying degree. Like, for example, he talks about Elizabeth Berkley's Showgirls doing bad, and the irony of how Demi Moore's movie Striptease being a success. And then he relates that, oh yeah, I saw Elizabeth Berkley naked all the time, and she undressed in front of cast all the time. Like, what's the point of even bringing that up? How are they connected? Dustin did admit to ostracizing himself, and I don't think that was entirely his fault. But I think he just gets back at the cast by just picking at them at the most mundane detail. Lark got a very short chapter, and she got famous later on for having some serious mental health issues. Dustin talked about having encounters with her later on after the show was done, and talking about how her odd behavior, and his conclusion was Lisa Turtle retreated back into her shell. Like, dude, is so insensitive how she was struggling with something and you just kind of just couldn't even come to any conclusion, though he was nicer to her than all the others. He actually didn't have anything really bad to say about her. And then there's another short chapter about things he did after the show ended, and briefly he mentioned his dad was still with him, so his dad I think was still managing him, which I think explains why his career panned out. And then there's a few short chapters on day in the life of recording the show. A lot of the show was just kind of written on the fly. The cast had influence in the character development, but I wouldn't say the specific lines they recited, which Dustin said that all of them knew it was cheesy and just really bad and very difficult to actually line read them because they were just so terrible. It was hard to act them out seriously. And also he and the other cast slept with a lot of the producers, so all the production of Saved by the Bell were the P word. He acknowledged Screech just got too over the top with the nerdiness, and he became the character everybody loved to hate. And again, I think that damaged him so badly, and something he never really recovered from. And ultimately, I think the show just did him in terrible. Saved by the Bell was a bit of a happy accident because it was a different show that got canceled and then got reworked or rebooted in a different format. And it turned out mostly good for the rest of the cast, but he got always the short end of the stick from day one. And then he struggled for it the rest of his life. So overall, a very interesting read on what it's like to be pigeonholed into the underdog character that never gets the winning, the triumphant, overcoming storyline, and is basically always remains the underdog, no matter how hard or how good you try to be. I thought it was very interesting, and rest in peace, Dustin Diamond.